I want to thank a lot of you who took time to send me a response to the video I put out last week. And they were mostly positive, all positive actually. And so I know that what I was doing is satisfying a need that I had. It's this need that's, I think, in all priests during that incredible season of Easter and the Triduum. I mean, that's when we have a message that's so powerful that we want to give to people. And it was so frustrating that I didn't have a community around me. And so I wanted to talk to people. And so I did the video, Surrender. And now that it's done, I'm thinking, I loved that connection with people. And so I miss it. And maybe this is the way to connect with people during this pandemic, during this time of isolation and separation. I mean, I could do it other times, certainly, but this is a kind of very unique, special time, and I think I want to do this every week, is what I'm saying. And so I would like to share this time with you as a fellow traveler on this experience of it's unprecedented in a way. And I notice when I'm alone, and I don't know how it is with you, but when I'm alone, my memory is just like engaged so much, and I keep remembering members of my life that I spent time with and had experiences with that were so rich, and I find myself sharing photos with them of events that happened 30 or 40 years ago, and maybe they send them back, and I get some from other people that I didn't send any to. So there's something about this time of being alone that we are so sensitive to our relationships, and they are important. They're what God has given to us in order to do the work that we're here to do, to grow, to become more and more reflections of Him, and like Him, to share that presence, that amazing, transformative, light-filled presence that we all possess, that we're asked to give and share to each other. It's the food we give to each other. And so what I wanted to do today is talk about who we are. You can't be in a relationship that's really, really healthy unless you're authentic. I spent most of my life auditioning in my relationships for affection and attention, and then that sort of didn't work very well, and then I decided that there's something better. And so I've been working on this authenticity for a long time, and I know that there were seeds planted in me a long time ago. And one of the places where I learned so much and was such a great source of wisdom and knowledge for me was my years at the University of Dallas. I was chaplain there for 13 years, and the faculty were extraordinary. They all gave me gifts, but a few of them really stood out, and one of them actually two of them was James Hillman and his wife Pat Barry, and James Hillman is a well-known Jungian psychologist. He was the head of the Jungian Institute in Zurich before he came to the University of Dallas, and he and his wife were founding members of what is a movement in Jungian analysis called archetypal psychology. And I remember one of the things that Jim used to say all the time, and of course, they interpreted dreams and that sort of thing. So he said the image is important. The archetype is important. Stay with it, stay with the image. It's interesting that I think about that, and I pay attention to my dreams, and I learn a great deal, but then I realize that the source of wisdom I go to, Old Testament, New Testament, is image after image after image, story that creates an image. The God that created us in human form, washing the feet of His disciples last week, is a powerful image. Just stick with it. What is it saying? What does it mean? So I want to see if I can give you an image of authenticity. And so I'm going to use an image that comes from Scripture. It's the tree of life, the tree of wisdom. We are like a tree. Jesus talks about us as if we're trees, bearing fruit for one another. And so let me just create an image for you, see if this works, all right? So let's imagine, we come into this world as an intention of God. We are spiritual beings. We take a human form, and that spiritual being is in this mysterious communion of two things. A seed and the nurturing earth, or the seed of a man in a woman's womb that is dark, and that's where life begins. And so imagine you and I are these creatures, these spiritual creatures that take on human form in the form of a seed, and we're planted in the earth. The word human comes from the same word as earth. And then there's this nutrient. There are nutrients in the soil, and think of them as our religion, our culture, our family of origin, our ancestors. So before we have a chance to filter anything, we're absorbing into our consciousness as we grow all these images and stories and memories, and then they form us before we have a filter. And then we break into light, we break through the soil, and then we experience three things. There's moisture, rain, there's sun, there's oxygen. Think of it. What do they represent? What are they image of? Well, the sun, S-U-N, is also the S-O-N. But think of the sun as light, enlightenment, that we come into the world, and what we're drinking in, what we need to grow and to become, is enlightenment, truth. And you can't grow and become who you are, especially in relationships, without the moisture, the cleansing waters of rain, which are just forgiveness. It's what it is, forgiveness. And then there's oxygen, this mysterious thing we breathe in. And I think of Jesus breathing on people, and it's the breath of the Spirit. Think of the breath as the presence of this loving God that we breathe in every time, every few seconds we draw it in. So if you take that image and know that the tree that is used in Scripture is a fruit tree. It's not just a beautiful oak, but it produces fruit. So there's something you and I are in this world to produce, and the food is not for us, but for others. And think of the uniqueness of human beings. We come in different genders, different colors, different nationalities, different sizes, different looks. That's so beautiful when you think about it, even though we tend to compete and think we should be the same and all that craziness. So each of us has this unique fruit that we produce, and it's for others. So how do you do that? There's one thing that we have that I learned, particularly from just studying and staying with the image of who Christ is. We have this capacity to intend something. And when we intend it, it happens. I mean, Jesus looked at somebody that was blind and intended that he saw. When he intended for someone to walk, they did. I mean, how did it work? I mean, sometimes he used some element, but most of the time it was just, he willed it, And so what happens when we are producing this unique fruit that is us? What do we do with it? If we stand back and take pictures of it and say, look at the beautiful fruit I produced, that's not very good. But what do we say? I want to give it to people. How do I give it to people? I intend something. And what's our intention? Not that they turn to us for everything, but that we are catalysts, like Christ was a catalyst of this presence of God. That's the fruitfulness of what we're working toward. It's not a particular fruit. It comes in different varieties, but the fruit's always the same. We share the incredible presence of God with each other. And when you intend it, it's so different. I remember before the Vatican Council, the liturgy was a different experience than it is now. It was a thing that you sort of stood back in silence in your pew and listened to a choir in the back, and there was this mystical thing, beautiful thing happening in this gorgeous sanctuary that had a slight little fence called a railing, and we watched it in awe, and it was beautiful. And people miss that awe and mystery. But that's not our tradition. So when the church went back to the original tradition, we found it's not a thing we witness, it's something we participate in, full, active, conscious participation. We're there to be fed by the Eucharist, but the Christ in us that's in that bread is in us, and we're sharing that with each other by wanting together as a community everything it promises. And it promises, one thing I just want to stick with an image of what I'm talking about in terms of what a mature tree becomes. It becomes authentic, fully what it was intended to be. There's also that wonderful image in the scripture about what happens when you get so stretched in too many branches maybe, and the fruit isn't very good because you're distracted with a million things. Let's cut some things out. And God knows we've cut out a whole lot this week, this month. It's been a month since we've been in this shutdown situation in Dallas. And so the branches have been cut back. Why? So they'll be more fruitful. So I pray this time I can have with you, we can talk about things like this. If there's anything I do that engages you more in the work of growing and becoming and sharing your fruit with everyone, that would make me so happy. And that's what I want to do. So that's it. And I hope this is a source of what I know we all long for. Intimacy with God, with each other, and with this mystery called life.